In today's hyper-competitive business landscape, organizations need to be doing everything they can not only to survive, but thrive. The businesses that are coming out on top are the ones who have mastered their data and are leveraging it to deliver integrated experiences that benefit both the business and their customers. We're talking with Mike Kearsey, Director of Boomi's Global Technology Office, to get his thoughts on staying competitive and the future of modern businesses. Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Pleased to meet you. Thank you for having me, Josh.
So, the first question I have for you today is a simple one. I mean, depending on your definition of simple. Why should businesses be looking to optimize their data?
It's a great question. And very simply, our organizations run on data, right? Organizations really do need to get their arms and grapple around the amount of data that they have and what's really important to them. As an organizations grow from everything from a startup to being a large enterprise, there are pockets of data excellences or silos of data that's not necessarily shared across the broader aspect of the organization. And I think harmonizing that data is going to give a competitive advantage. As they sort of drill into that, it's going to give them streamline and optimization in terms of where they can save money, where they can capture new revenue. And there's also, in other cases, is how they can manage risk as well.
Brilliant. So then, what role do integrated experiences play in driving that value and competitiveness?
It is all about how you look at the different actors or personas that interact from a business perspective, both internally and externally, right? That could be customers, it could be partners, it could be employees, and how do we build that engaging experience? And all of that is predicated on the interactivity that we have with them, and also the data that they consume. So you can imagine that there's data that's being generated by the systems that we have, it's being generated by users, and we need to capture that, right? And that data then is useful in those sort of domains where that information is coming from. And what we really need to do as an organization is start to build, a capability to stage that data, to be able to cleanse it, enrich it, put business logic and semantic dictionaries around that, and being able to present that out. So then the business has got this approach of being able to look into that data regardless of the business unit that has potentially access or with the founders or the consumers of that data. And then some of that data that you have, you might need to master it, right? How do I take some of that goodness of that data that might be around an employee that may be being generated by different systems? I want to master that so I can get a 360-degree view of Josh, for example, right? And that might go to payroll, it might go to benefits, it might go to the HR system, etc., right? Because they're not linked. And actually what you now have is a single view of Joshua. And then what we want to do is make sure that underlying foundation of integration is now happening as part of that. Well, that's one street. But the other side, Josh wants to come in and actually change his details. He's moved house, right? Or he's changed his mobile phone number. I want to come in and edit that data through a simple web portal or a business application on his phone, and be able to change that data. And that record is then updated because Josh has the authority to go and do that. So what we've been able to do is look at all of these elements of data being created by different capabilities or applications or services. At the same time, how do we link all of them and manage that? How do we then interact with that data? But one of the most important things is how do you orchestrate that across the business? And what Boomi's been able to do as part of its whole complete platform is be able to help organizations start to build those integrated experiences. If it's at the problems at the data end, or it's in the middle around the integration, or it's at the other end, which is all about the engagement, right? And the orchestration of how you actually deliver that from a user experience perspective.
The question of user experience is quite an important one. Why is the value of customer experience going to be so important as a result of integrated experiences?
It's the old thing. If we take this more personally, right? It's all about me, right? Individuals see that it is all about me, and people want hyper personalization right? They're not interested in information that's not really about them or around their business unit, right? It's all about them. And what we're looking at is building a highly interactive and engaged model with the right data at the right time that really starts to build that personalization. If you look at organizations from a customer perspective, right, there's no point targeting organizations with your product or services. It has no relevance, right? You want to look at the right demographics. You want to look at that around making sure that it's engaging, that you get the right response time. So that whole piece around the customer experience is pretty key. Now, that might be ways businesses look at that externally, but that's also important both internally, right? How the great example, Josh, will be you're starting a new job, right? It's probably one of the most nerve-wracking events that ever happens, right? Everything from going through the whole interview process to hopefully getting through the panels and selection and then going through the negotiation of your compensation, let's say, for example, right? It's all an experience. And that whole experience then carries on into that next phase of when do you join on day one, right? And building that whole cohesiveness, it really does bring two things. One, it builds trust. It builds credibility, it builds reliability in the brand that you offer as an organization, that you bring to an organization. What it also allows you to do is to capture those moments, right, through the use of data. And then when that person starts on day one, right, they've got all of their accesses to IT systems and services, and they can get going. So when you look at that through that onboarding process, if I look at it, is the ability to accelerate the productivity of that individual. There's nothing worse when you join an organization, right, and there's no one really there to meet you. You don't have all of your IT services, right, and things like that. So the first week's wasted, right? But think about the impact to the employee. It's like, well, did I actually join the right company, right? This doesn't look as cool and hip and trendy as I was expecting. But those organizations who have nailed it, right, really understand the value of personalization, right? And that also ultimately brings, certainly when you look at it through the lens of an employee, both value, they understand the organization from a cultural aspect. You get greater productivity, you get greater loyalty, right? And there's no, I wouldn't say ill feeling is the word, there's no animosity around that person coming on board. They're not having second doubts. So there's a huge amount of value in personalization of customer experiences.
It's not just the value in customer experience that integration and integration platforms can offer. How can these platforms promote things like resilience and agility as well?
Yeah, in many ways, in very many ways, right? When you look at organizations today, and we only have to look back in the rear window a little bit around post-COVID, right? Organizations, we had supply chain issues. So when you look at it through the supply chain perspective, having an integrated capability and the ability to, switch suppliers, right? At one point, China was pretty much locked off, right? Or we can even look at the impact of Evergreen in the Suez Canal. Right, that blocked off, a lot of raw goods, materials, etc., coming into various different ports in the world. So when you look at that from a resiliency perspective and you think, I can actually now switch my supply chain for this particular product or material somewhere else in the world and get it more efficiently or more quickly. So when you look at that, having that access and ability to do it. So traditionally, when we see some customers, the ability to bring on a supplier or a partner to help them in that might take anything to, 8 to 12 weeks, right? That's a long time to wait to get, some interaction with an organization to do that. So certainly what we've seen from Boomi, and we've got many customers that we work with, both here in the UK and across the globe, we've been able to switch that from, months or weeks down to days, right? So then they know that supplier X has come on board and it's pointing to, let's say, South America. Actually, we're not waiting 3 months. We can actually digitally exchange contracts and information, inventory, POs and invoices within a couple of days. Now that to me is business resiliency, right? When you lot to look at that. So I think even when we look at supply chain and procurement, it's not a case of, where do we go to get the cheapest deal? Is actually where do we get the most reliable source at the most optimal price for our business for the products that we actually develop. So, technology really does play a fundamental part of some of that business resiliency.
So then our final question is a bit of a broad one, and one that I guess is unique to you. what is the key message you would offer for CIOs, CDOs who are looking to transform their business?
So, absolutely. Core to every organization. For me, digital refers to the business model where technology is at the core. So really, this is what meaning is. Software is an expression of the business, right? And how you really do that, it really depends on how quickly and you can continuously improve, your processes, your technology, your procedures via the innovative use of software, right? So I see that from a big enabler. And this is where the fusion between IT and the business really needs to come closer together. And the use of low-code platforms like Boomi is critical to enable that to happen. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a very much similar sort of clunky way. And, even through some of the sources like Forrester and their research, right, the top reasons why people leverage our technology in that, from leveraging sort of data to build those digital experiences, right, we're empowering both the business and IT to develop, right, low-code applications and integrating with those different sources, everything around efficiency and time to value, time to deliver new products, time to deliver backlogs of projects, right? And what you're bringing harmonization around, okay, this is how fast the business wants to go. How does IT deliver against that? And leveraging tools where they can adopt and also build very much a common language of how the organization wants to work and how IT works. And I think the key message from my side is embracing both sides of IT and the business and fusing teams together on common goals with a common language around the common outputs or goals of what the organization is trying to achieve.